Hello and welcome back to the Rugby League Hub podcast, a weekly podcast in which we discuss the goings-on in the rugby league world. Joining me this week, as always, is Ross Williams. How are we this week?
I'm very good, mate. How are you?
I'm very good as well, thank you. We'll kick this week off, a bit of news coming out. We'll touch on one that came out just after we recorded last week's episode, is the game that England are going to take on the Kiwis in Denver. A bit more expansion, if it was ever needed for us. A mid-season international break, June the 23rd, has been stated for. What are your first thoughts on the game?
I've not quite wrapped my head around it yet. I think it probably won't dawn on that it's actually happening until June 23rd. I think it's just a bit surreal, really. England, New Zealand in Denver. It's just a strange one. It's especially, I think we'll go over the negatives first, and then we'll go on to the actual pros of it. First thing for me is, like, we're playing New Zealand in June before we play them in a 3-match test series at the end of the season, which is a little bit overkill for me. I think I'd rather be playing someone else. I understand that you need to have the name value of a real opponent, but I think it would have been slightly better. There's no way you'd get the Aussies over there, I don't think. But I'd prefer to play a team like that. But just a little bit surreal, to be honest.
Yeah, I think in one way playing them beforehand is a negative and a positive.
Yeah,
it's a positive for the side. You get an early scouting mission really for free.
From a playing point of view, it's good.
For the players, for the coaches, it's probably really good for them to play New Zealand, and then you've got another while to work on your game and get ready for that. In terms of a fan's point of view, what that one-off game, what's to say? If we get beaten that, or England easily beat New Zealand, then the Test series then loses a bit of its...
Loses a bit of spice, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no point saying, look at this game, that went okay, so watch another 3 of these. So I think playing New Zealand, as you said, it's a bit of a funny choice, but realistically, would you get one of the other Islanders teams over?
Yeah.
Probably not. Would you get the Aussies over? Again, probably not. So...
Well, it's interesting to see what they're going to do with it, because if you've looked at the schedule for the day, obviously it's only a couple months away, and Rugby League being Rugby League, it's not announced yet. It's to be announced, but there is a game 1. England-New Zealand is game 2 on the day. Yeah. There is a game beforehand, a bit of a curtain raiser. No idea as of yet, I don't believe, who that's going to be. I'd like to think it'd make sense that it'd be USA versus Canada.
Yeah.
That'd be the game that would make sense, so... Obviously, a majority of the players will still already be over there, so it cuts off a lot of problems, and you'd like to think that'd be the case. If not, you'd at least want to get an Islander side over there, whether it be a PNG, a Tonga, or Samoa, whoever that may be. So we'll see what the crack is with that. In terms of the location, which is the big point here, I suppose, Denver's an interesting one, because there's been talk for the last year or two about, obviously since the Wolfpack came in, and there's talk about New York, things like that. There's been plenty of talk about expansion into America, but until this has come out, there's been no talk of Denver. Denver is a very different market to the New York market or the Toronto market, which is on the East Coast. There's always been somewhat a rugby league presence, a small one, but there's always been a rugby league presence on the East Coast. Teams in Philadelphia, teams in Boston. Denver is a long way away. It's more towards the west. It's kind of Midwest. It's a long way away from that market, so it tells me that someone has just chucked a lot of money at this from over there, with the hopes of making it big, which is it's good for the game, don't get me wrong, but it is a little bit strange. And in terms of location, again, like I say, the actual stadium itself, which is touched on, when they said Denver, I didn't think they'd actually play it at Mile High Stadium. It turns out they are playing it at Mile High Stadium. Well, I'm an NFL fan as well as a rugby league fan. I've watched many games of the Denver Broncos playing that stadium. That stadium is absolutely huge. It holds 70,000 at least. I think it's maybe like 74, something like that.
Like that.
It's a big old ground, is that. And frankly, the first ever Rugby League International between a European side and a Southern Hemisphere side in America. Before that announcement, I'd have been thinking, right, if we can get 10, 15,000, that'd be a really good crowd. That is going to look absolutely abysmal on TV.
Yeah, I think something like Manchester United, in a pre-season friendly, 53k at most, something like that.
And that's the biggest brand in the world.
Biggest football team, arguably, in the world. One of the biggest brands in America. A huge following there. Rugby League, not so much a huge following there. You know, if they could get USA versus Canada as game one, that could attract a few more local fans rather than, you know, people already interested in it. But if the crowd isn't there in that stadium, it's going to be a good job to make it look like it's been a good event for me.
Yeah, there's whoever takes the broadcast rights is going to have a bit of a job on, I think. But in the meantime, like I say, we don't really know who is behind this. There's got to be someone behind the scenes, like I say, chucking some money at this, because it's, you know, we talk about all the time about the lack of money in rugby league. So to pull this off, there's a lot of money being thrown around. Whoever that is, we just got to hope they've, you know, got their head screwed on. They know what they're doing social media wise. They know what they're doing marketing wise, because it's going to take a lot of marketing. You know, they've chucked out a couple of videos and stuff like that. There's like a Twitter account, what have you, which is a good start. But you know, we're in March now. We're not too far away from June 23rd, so there's going to have to be a lot of promotion over there in the States to get the fans through the doors.
I think it's another one of them. You know, we keep asking for them to spread the game, and this is another sign of them trying to do it. Whether they're going about it the right way, it's all up for argument. You know, could sit here after June 23rd and say, "Wow, what a crowd we got!" You know, 20 odd at the most, which would be
it'd be a success,
amazing. And we'd be like, you know, big success. That's great. Or we could be sat here going, it didn't really work. But at least they're trying things, you know. Whether it works or not is going to be the big debate.
It's going to be interesting. I just wonder if they're just banking on certain fans not looking at the real fine print and just imagining the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Honest to God, I mean, because you know, New Zealand have played over there. They played Ireland there last year, didn't they? I think they played in, was it last year? They played at Soldier Field in Chicago, which is a similar size ground. And you know, to be fair, they got a really good crowd for that. I know the Premiership have played games over there, not quite had the same success. I think they've played games in Philadelphia and a few other places. But the internationals, when Ireland and New Zealand, like I say, have gone over there, have actually done pretty well. So, you know, if they can market it well and kind of go off the name value, if they can rip off the All Blacks a little bit, daft it seems, that could come off from.
You know, if it works, it works.
And that could be the reason why New Zealand's involved.
Yeah. From moving on, you know, another person who's involved in the marketing side, Mr. Eddie Hearn is back again.
Yep.
An article went out this week in The Guardian, a big sit-down talk with Eddie Hearn where he said the sport of rugby league is on its knees and he could be the revival of it. A lot of ideas, you know, he's thrown about ideas of Challenge Cup of the Magic Weekend and the TV revenue gain from that and the commercial profiles of those competitions, which, you know, at the moment isn't really much outside of the sport. You know, you mentioned Magic Weekend, someone they go, oh, what's that? Whereas if you mention the FA Cup to a rugby league fan, they go, oh yeah, the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So in terms of those ideas, it sounds good for me.
Yeah, I think the fact is actually, because I mean, there's been talk about him for the best part of about 2 or 3 months now, since Wood stepped down as CEO of the RFL, and you know, I think it was just to start with. I think it just seemed like a few like little flippant little comments. He was on TalkSport and things like that, and you know, it was mentioned, but I didn't really think much into it. To be fair, the fact he's now sitting down with people like Aaron Bowers, proper rugby league journalists, and actually having these chats and going in the national papers and things like that. You know, you can be cynical and just think this is just Eddie Hearn getting his face in the paper, which is possible. You know, he's a master at that. But it seems he does really have a genuine interest in this, and he seems quite genuine. He does have the feeling he could really do something with the sport. It can only be positive, I think. A guy like that, you know, whether it works or not, we need something, and it's certainly worth a try. And like I say, I think Eddie Hearn, he's not someone who's going to take over the RFL. I don't think this is not going to be Matchroom. We're not going to be running rugby league in the next 2 to 3 years for me, which people seem to think, and that's not the case. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, they're an events business. Well, I mean, they're promotion, but they're dealing events. You know, they're dealing Kelbrook fighting Robchenko on Saturday. They're dealing the Premier League darts. They're events to get people through the doors, which is why something like Magic Weekend could work. I don't know for sure what they could do with it to improve it. Whether it just be, he mentions a lot about social media and things like that. Yeah. And marketing, that's his domain. I don't really know what he could do with it, but he seems relatively confident. And if there's anyone who can get 50, 60,000 into St James's Park for Magic Weekend, you'd like to think it could be him.
Yeah, you know, I just said he's probably not going to be the man to take over, but even if he just comes in, spreads a little bit of his sort of knowledge that he's got, because he is a very successful man.
Yeah.
if he just comes in, gives the sport a bit of knowledge, and then someone else, even if he comes in for Magic Weekend, just that, and we can take a little bit of what he's done with Magic Weekend and put it in to the regular season, to the Challenge Cup, and that's how we can build then. And as you said, it's a positive that he's actually got himself involved now. It's not just rumours. He's come out and said, I'm confident I could sort of make this work.
Yeah, in the interviews he's had over the weekend, he spoke a lot about the kind of personalities of the game, things like that, and the fact that Rugby League doesn't really have any. I think he mentioned a few names in terms of players that he knew from back in the day. Talking Andy Farrell's, I think Jamie Peacock was the last one he said he really kind of knew. And obviously he's a player who retired 3-4 years ago. But he says the potential is there. We as fans know there is the potential there for real personalities. Rugby AM do a good job, in my opinion, of getting those personalities out. That is their entire forte, doing that. But obviously they don't have they don't really have the medium. They're all right. They're on national TV, but it's free sports at the moment. It's nothing major. If Rugby AM were on Sky Sports, for example, that'd be a different kettle of fish, I think. But if Eddie Hearn could do a similar kind of job to that, really promote the personalities of the game, get these faces on the sides of buses, on the side of billboards. Get them out there. If they want to give him Sky Sports and the Super League accounts that run with that, then that's fine by me.
Yeah, as I said, I think many a Rugby League fan would welcome him into the sport to try and spruce it up a little bit.
It's worth a go, isn't it? I think it's just worth a go at this point.
Give it a chance. Anyway, now we'll move into the games from the last weekend. Not many to choose from this week. The snow causing a bit of havoc.
The beast from the east.
Across the country, especially in Huddersfield where we're based. It was a bitterly
it weren't too clever. It weren't too clever the other day.
Snowy weekend. But the first game, we're going to talk about Wakefield versus Huddersfield. Wakefield grabbing the win without the star man this week.
Yeah.
And, it's actually the best start to a Super League season since they've been promoted, I believe. 4 from 4. There you go.
You got that.
And starting to look at this Wakefield side now and think, many of what we said before the season, saying, they could be up for doing something, they're backing up so far.
Yeah, I think what's impressive about Wakefield, I think, is we spoke at the start of the season about they're going to be quite, they could follow the kind of Castleford template of last year, kind of be really creative with the ball, be a little bit off the cuff, throw it around a little bit, be the entertainers. And they have been in parts. Certainly they've been helped by Johnson in the first 3 games, but I think the winning games now, especially like on yesterday, in fact, on Sunday, in the conditions, I think, talking about these 4 games now, I think we're going to say the word conditions quite a lot, I imagine, but obviously it wasn't cracking at Bellevue. But they've ground out a result against not the best side at the moment in Huddersfield, but a hardy side. They're always going to give you a tough test, and they've ground out a really good result. And like I say, 4 from 4, it's their best start in years and years and years. If you're a Trinity fan, long may it continue.
Yeah, I think from a Wakefield point of view, just enjoy the ride at the moment.
Yeah.
At the start of the season, you'd have said, they'll have a good season, but you wouldn't put them up there with St Helens, who were tipped for such great things, but they'll be level on points with them. In terms of Huddersfield, we mentioned a tough start to the season for them, and it's proven that so far.
We said it'd go one or two ways, didn't we? So
we said they could come out and scrape a few wins here, they'll be close, and they've not exactly been so much off the mark in each game, but like we've said before with the likes of Catalans and Widnes, if you're just off the pace in every game a little bit, by the end of the season, it's enough to find yourself in a bit of trouble.
Super League this year, it looks like it's going to be a season of really fine margins.
Yeah.
I think we said last week there's not a great deal between any of the sides. I think top to bottom, really. The worst side is not a million miles away from the best side, I think, this year. And so, like you say, I think there's going to be a lot of tight games. There's going to be a lot of low-scoring games. We've not really seen many blowouts this year. I think that'll continue. So, like you say, Huddersfield, if they're only playing at 70-80% every week, they're just not going to get those results in those tight scraps, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we've said it's a tight competition in Super League, but if you get to then the middle eights at the end of the season, we've mentioned how strong, and we will mention again today, the Championship teams are very strong this season.
Indeed.
And, there's a lot of question marks over some of these sides, and it makes for good viewing from a fan outside of Huddersfield view, but for Huddersfield, it's not so much, completely worrying, but you need someone in that team to sort of pick the game up at the moment for me.
Yeah, 100%.
Over to St Helens versus Salford now, and one person who doesn't need to pick his game up at the moment, Ben Barber, furthers his case for Man of Steel a bit more with 2 tries and 2 assists, I believe, at the weekend. Another great performance by the St Helens team. We was watching the game before. Salford looked quite far off the game, and that for me, defensively, shocking is the only way I could put it.
Yeah, on your first point, he's a bit good, this Barber kid, isn't he?
Just a bit.
He's a bit good. I don't know where you found him from. It's incredible. Talent Scout's doing a great job. No, but he's doing really well. He looks the player you hoped you'd got last year, basically. And he wasn't quite there at the back end of last year. He obviously wasn't match fit after the ban and everything. But we just kind of saw it a little bit at the end. But he's come in. He looks in great shape, and he's running the game. Like, every time you watch Saints now, he's pretty much far and away the best player in the field. So as you say, he's certainly going to be the front runner for Man of Steel, I would say, at this early stage. Saints just got the job done. I guess it's kind of tough sometimes playing against a side like Salford, where we're not quite at it, but they're a little bit scrappy and things like that. But the Saints just proving to be a potential champion team, I think, this year, just getting those results. I think it was quite tight at half time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But to kick on the second half, I was a little bit surprised when I saw the score and ended up 34-2. They really kicked on and put them to the sword. But I think Salford just dwindled as the game went on. They looked pretty poor, and we've just watched the highlights back again, and some of those tries were really soft.
Yeah,
really soft.
For as much as you can make the case of, St Helens play brilliant off-the-cuff football.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that is hard to defend against when you've got 6 or 7 guys running at you. You don't know who's going to get the ball, but some of the first up contacts with some of the Salford players were just awful. Just falling off tackles. And we've mentioned Salford amongst this group at the bottom who, it's very much up for debate what they can do this season. And, not saying they're in huge trouble again, but I think this game they expected it to be a bit tight. I think Gareth O'Brien kicked a penalty in the 17th minute or something like that. And I just think, it's a curious case with Salford. They've got a rebuild.
Yeah.
But this season they've not really looked up to that.
No, you just wonder if it's a bit of a confidence thing, a bit of a morale thing.
Yeah.
Because they just seem... You just get to a certain point in the game and they're just like, don't want to be there at times. And it happened last season, which is why I say it. It's not just a one-off thing. It happened towards the back end of last year, as we all know, Salford, but were going pretty well. And then they just completely dropped off and just slid towards the end of the year. And it looks pretty grim, to be honest, the AJ Bell. And same kind of things happened again, probably... bit of a microcosm. It's happening just in games now. We can't talk about the whole season yet, obviously it's only 4 games in, but you're seeing a little bit of it in these kind of games. Like I say, it was tight at half time, Saints get a try, confidence goes, and then that's it, it's out the window. There's not even an inkling of a comeback. So I don't know really how you combat that. It's obviously it's up to the coaching staff to really kind of instill a bit of confidence, and a bit of a troubling time for the Devils at the moment.
Yeah, just going on Ben Barber again, though, there's been a lot of talk about whether he's going to remain at Saints beyond this season.
Yeah.
He probably feels like he's got a bit of unfinished business in the NRL.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
There's teams sniffing around in Cronulla, for one, looking to bring him back. It's a star-studded team they've got there at the moment, but, if you can get a player like Barber in your team, you get him
He's
in
going to
there.
add 20 side, isn't he?
He's just one of them players, and I've seen a lot on Twitter, people being like, just saying, enjoy the ride. And I think for Saints fans specifically, and for fans of the league, when there's a good player like that, enjoy him whilst he's here.
Yeah, I think
he is a highlights reel on his own.
Yeah, I think that's speaking on behalf of Saints fans and rugby league fans generally. I think we're not stupid at this point.
Yeah.
We know where we're at. We know we are maybe a bit of a rugby league rehab at the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much the best way to describe it. You get a player who's in a bit of trouble.
Seguiaro.
Exactly. There's many. Todd Carney, you could say. Joel Monahan is probably the best example of it. Best example of it working anyway.
Yeah.
When players when the top players are not in Australia do find it tough, they come on hard times, something's happened in the personal life, that kind of thing. we're not a bad landing spot for him because we're just happy for the talent, really. And I wouldn't expect Barber to be here. He might do another year after this, maybe, but I wouldn't expect anything more after that, if I'm honest. Like I say, this could be his last year for all we know. But yeah, you've just got to take it. I mean, don't complain too much. I think that's the word there. I think it's just, like I say, enjoy him while he's here. He's doing a great job for Saints at the moment, and it could well be the reason why you get a grand final ring at the end of the season. So
yeah, if he brings a grand final victory in a Man of Steel, then I'll personally pay for his plane back to Australia.
There you go. I hope he's listening. He's going to get that right.
Move on to Hull FC versus Warrington, and probably the biggest debate in terms of games this week. A lot happened in that game. Hull FC ended up grabbing the victory, but probably the biggest talking point is Liam Watts.
Yeah.
Just why? What?
Why is a good word.
All of the above.
Well, you can't even just... It's just a really strange one. Like, you can't even work out what's really going through his head, because he's in the challenge with Dom Crosby. There's only 7 minutes left in the game. You're winning the game. You're up. He's in the challenge with Crosby. There's not a great deal in it. There's a little bit of needle in there, but there's nothing much. He goes to play the ball, and if you haven't seen it, obviously he just kind of marches up to him, makes himself as big as possible, and then just lands. He just delicately brushes his head against Don Crosby's head, which is it's just stupid. Like it boils down to just being stupid. As soon as you put your head on another player's head, you're walking. Everyone knows that. That's just common sense. And like I said, I think Lee Radford said and to be fair to Radford, he's not tried to justify it at all, as you'd expect. The press conference said he should get a lengthy ban for it, which he should. But yeah, I think the main point was, if you're going to do that, if you're going to be that stupid, leave one on him. Like, he didn't even make any kind of impact at all. He's literally got a red card over absolutely nothing there.
No, and I think props to Radford for coming out and saying that, he's not tried to defend him and say, we're going to fight this, and, he's not done it in such an obvious case. I don't think you can. But he's come out, and I think that'll be good for Watts' character. There's been a lot of talk, Hull FC fans, slating England for not picking him.
Yeah, Twitter's gone mad this week, hasn't it? Yeah.
An absolute showcase of why he's not an international player.
I think so.
If a player can't keep his head in round 4 of a Super League game whilst winning, how is he going to keep his head in a World Cup final where Australia are only 6 points in front with 7 minutes left to go, we're on the front foot? What if he does that then? We're a man down, Australia then run wild.
You do wonder if he'd be a liability in that situation because of his reputation. You come up against some clever players, some side players who are going to pick him out. They're going to use all game. They're going to wind him up, and he's made it very obvious that if he gets wound up, he's going to do something daft. He spoils himself a little bit, and it's not the first time Liam Watts. Let's be honest. He has got a reputation before this. He's a top player. He's probably, if you had to put a list together, certainly your top 10 props in the league, probably top 5 even. Watts is around there. Arguably not the best prop in that team. I would say Taylor's probably a better prop, but that's not a knock against Watts at all, because Taylor's a top player. But yeah, your top side, your Australia, New Zealand's, they're going to pick him out. They know how to deal with players like that, and that's something you can't really have in your side for me.
Yeah, as I just said, he's a top player, but sometimes his head and his character is tested in a game that there was nothing really, 20 points to 12 or whatever it was at the time.
Bearing in mind they were also a man up because Deck Patton also got red carded earlier on.
Similarly, as stupid. I think it's one of them. It's a swinging arm to the head. If he can claim he's gone to get the ball, it looks worse in slow motion.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same. It looks worse on replay, definitely. There's the reverse angle, isn't there, where you see him kind of coming in, you see where he's looking, and you're like, okay, he knows exactly what he's doing here.
It's a nasty challenge.
It's not the best.
We don't really want to see in the game. You're never going to tell someone, "Oh, go out, swing," an arm.
I think a couple of years ago, you're probably looking at a yellow. That's what it seems.
Yeah,
but they've really tightened up on it now, and quite rightly so. Because contact with the head.
Yeah, head knocks. You can't really argue with what the sport have learnt over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
In terms of concussion and all that, I think it reflects badly on the RFL and the referees.
Yeah, 100%.
If Failer doesn't send him off the abuse he'd probably get on Twitter would probably be substantial, and that's a knock against some of the fans on Twitter, really.
Yeah. But
I think, in that case, he probably should have gone.
Yeah, I think he made the right call. I think Patton put him in a situation where he couldn't really do anything else, as you say. And that's just daft by the player, really. I think if you watch the play, I'll try and say it. Faramo?
Something like that.
We'll go with Faramo. I think it's Faramo. Another big, powerful
winger.
Another big, powerful winger from Hull. And, but if you watch the play, he's just burst out of three tackles. He's really making some headway. And it just looks like a frustrated...
Yeah.
It just looks like a frustrated late effort. He's already been tackled as he comes in. So it's a late shot anyway. It's not great. And I think Taylor probably made the right call. He made the right call both times for me.
Yeah, and, that sort of impacted Warrington for the rest of the game. A half down against, probably one of the best half pairings in the league.
Yeah, on form at the moment, yeah.
And probably one of the best sevens, and that's going to put you to death. Max Need put an exclamation point on the end of the game with a drop goal, and another solid win for Hull against, it's another scalp really in Warrington.
Yeah.
And for them, just keep going, picking up the points, and they're going to be there at the end of the year, and these are the games that you need to win.
Yeah, I think Hull are going to be very, very hard to beat at the Cake On this year. I don't think there's going to be many teams that are going to go there and win it all, to be honest. I think they're going to make it a little bit of a fortress. It was tough to go there last year and win. And I think even more so now, there must be a real, despite the daftness of a couple of players, there seems to be a real kind of good team spirit there. Radford's instilled it, you look at them huddling after the game, things like that. That great picture that came out. And Hull FC are going to be up there. They're going to be right up there at the end of the season. I think that home form is going to be vital for them. Yeah,
we'll move on to the last game for this week. Wigan versus Widnes, and a literal tale of two halves,
Yep.
Widnes in that first half, I went on Twitter and seen the score of the game and was like, wow, Wigan must be playing really bad here, and either Widnes really well, and it showed Widnes have got that bit of resolve, but in the end, Wigan, I think it was 28 unanswered points in that second half to come back and grab the win, which is a huge confidence boost for Wigan in my eyes.
Yeah, they needed it, I think they?
Yeah.
I think they really needed it. In terms of Widnes, I think it just, it's real pros and cons in it. I think they're proving that they've got the potential there. It's just whether they have the personnel to really put it together for 80 minutes. Because if you're leading any game, you are leading 16-0. You should be winning. It's as simple as that, and you certainly shouldn't be losing. It's 28-16 ended. You certainly shouldn't be losing by that margin. You just look at the Widnes squad, I think, and they feel that probably just a couple of players too few for me.
Yeah, I think they've got the quality to compete in the league, but not week in week out for me sort of thing.
Yeah. They're going to pick scalps up 100%, but as they did against Leeds.
In a game, against Wigan, going 16-0 up against someone who's not got that quality that Wigan have, which they haven't got in all over the pitch really for them. If they're 16-0 up against a Hull, Chiara, Catalans, even a Salford, you back them from there to go on and win that game.
Yeah.
Believe in your defence and even add more points on from there. But in terms of Wigan, I think, as we've said just then, it's a big confidence boost for that side to be able to claw back a victory from there.
They needed to bounce back from the Warrington result, didn't they, as well?
Yeah. So. And I think, it's still umming and ahhing over Wigan. There's a lot of people saying, well, that's a bad result for them, sort of going 16-0 down, but it's a great result in terms of the confidence and what they're going to gain from that.
Yeah, I think you learn from games like that, don't you? I think towards the end of the season that might happen. That could happen a couple more times, and now they know how to react. They know you have the ability to do that. That's the big thing. I think probably more mentally than anything else. Last thing on Widnes, I don't think you can be too disheartened from it. I think you look at Widnes and they've done the 4 games now. Play 4 games? 5 games.
Yeah.
Play 5 games, haven't they? But you look at the 5 games they've played. All right, they had Catalan week 1, which is, Catalan at home, I think, with all due respect, is going to be one of the easiest games for every team this year. The way they're playing at the moment. I don't think that's disrespectful, really. I think that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Since then, they've played Castleford, Warrington, Leeds, and Wigan. That's a tough run for a side predicted to be bottom of the table.
Yeah.
That's a really tough run, and they've picked up a couple of wins there. They were 16-0 up against Wigan. they're not half as bad as we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, the games they've lost have been close ones. The Casper one was
exactly.
by a point.
Yeah.
And
they dug in right against Warrington as well. That was a tough one. So
yes, they've showed, I think, out of the sides we highlighted before the season as sort of the bottom group.
Yeah.
I think Widnes have probably showed the most resolve and mettle.
It's probably the best of the rest kind of thing in the bottom four. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, as we mentioned, that squad, if one or two players in that first team get injured, that's when your struggles start to come in. The youngsters starting to get called upon more and more. Similar to last year, I think that's when the worries will come in and the results start to waver a bit.
It's going to be a real test of that Widnes Youth Academy, I think, unfortunately.
That wraps up the Super League games for this week. Just to touch on the Championship a little bit, and an absolute blinder between Lee and Featherstone, 38-30. Another great advert for the Championship, and for Lee, they need to bounce back, really.
Mm-hmm.
They've not had the best start, and there's two sides of this. You can say it's a strong performance against a very strong Featherstone team, but for an ex-Super League team, you'd back them to be winning, for me. Yeah,
it's troubling times a little bit for Lee, isn't it? I think a lot of people kind of expecting they'd certainly be in the hunt, probably top 2-3, certainly going back up after last year, because they did pretty well in Super League for me. Obviously, they ended up going down in the end, but during the regular season and stuff, they picked up some good results, things like that. They weren't a bad side, and the side hasn't changed too much this season for me. There's still some talent in there, but you're looking at it now. They've faced 2 or 3 losses on the bounce now, and Neil Dukes is out. We don't know who's going to take over just yet. Will it be Cunningham?
God help them.
Well, there we go. So, I'd be looking elsewhere, to be honest. But, it's a little bit troubling for Lee, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, I think, as you said, ex-Super League, not so much a knock against Featherstone saying we'd expect Lee to win, but you'd expect a team that's just come down to be up there and fighting, with the calibre of players that they should have. But for Featherstone, it's a huge plus for them.
Yeah.
Continuing on with this strong Championship start we've had, and it's, at the end of the day, if you're going to win the Championship and go up, or not sort of win the Championship, get into the middle eights and show signs of going up, you need to be beating teams like Lee to show that they're not necessarily a Super League team, but they've got the calibre of that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get much better match practice than the likes of Lee and maybe Toronto for when you're in the middle eights, for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think you look at that Feather Rovers team, and you're looking at probably one of the best put together sides in the Championship. I think it's been a bit of an ongoing process, and obviously John Duffy took over towards the back end of last year. He heralded it as one of the best performances he's seen as a coach. Obviously, he saw some pretty good ones at Swinton as well last season. They're really well put together. They're well drilled. Again, there's some players in there, the likes of Ian Hardman and things like that, have been there for 30 years, it seems.
Yeah.
There's been players who've been there for a long time, but they made some good additions. Ridyard's doing very, very well down there. Martin Ridyard's he's an interesting player. He tried his hand at Super League, didn't he? I didn't quite get there. He's one of those players that I think is kind of in that middle ground, where he's perhaps not good enough to be an elite Super League player, but he's arguably too good for the Championship. He's kind of in no man's land, really, but while he's down in the Championship, he's going to cause teams a lot of problems. And he's got young Tom Holmes, who signed from Castleford last year, alongside him, who's a top talent. So they're going to cause every single side problems this year, and I'm excited to see how they're doing as Toronto, actually.
Yeah, it's a well balanced side, and Toronto come into that with a lot of confidence as they knocked up the first big score of the year, really, 52-12 against Swinton.
Yeah,
and it's probably the first sign of the class that the Wolfpack have that we've seen so far this season. As we mentioned, it's been a very tightly contested season so far, and we had Toronto and Toulouse this week with 2 big scores, but the expansions continue to march on into the Championship, but very much the same what we've been saying. It's very tight at the top. Yeah,
it's very tight at the top. In terms of those 2 results, with all due respect to Swinton and Rochdale, it's what you'd kind of expect.
Yeah,
I think I don't want to feel too bad on those sides, because both sides have got talent in there, and both had some great results last season as well. But you'd expect Toronto and Toulouse, if they're going to live up to the expectations which people have them. These are the results they need. and they've come through with them. So what more can you ask really for those two sides?
Yeah, I think with Toulouse, everyone knows what to expect from the style of rugby you play can allow for a score like that to happen. In terms of Toronto and Swinton, Toronto have got basically probably a Super League calibre side.
Getting there.
When fully fit.
Getting there.
And one of the strongest teams in the championship. You expect one of these results to come out when a side like Swinton isn't having the best day.
Yeah.
But in terms of next week's fixtures for the Super League, one or two interesting games that we'll pick up on. It kicks off with Leeds versus Hull FC on the Thursday on Sky. Who do we think is going to take that one, and what do we make of that game?
That's quite a big early game, that, isn't it? I think Hull hitting a bit of form now. Obviously Leeds have been kind of thrown off a little bit, having the game against Catalan postponed last week. Also the first game back at Headingley, I believe. Obviously it's not fully done yet, but I think we've got a temporary north stand on there. So that'll be interesting to see how they cope with that. Obviously slightly reduced attendance, things like that. It should be a cracker, to be fair. It's a repeat of the semi-final from last season as well, which obviously Leeds won at Headingley. In terms of who's going to take it, I fancy Hull to get an upset, but I think it'd be tight. I'll go Hull by 4.
Yeah, I'd probably back you up on that. I think Hull, as we mentioned, just if you're comparing the halves between the two sides, Leeds, it's very much, is Joel Moon going to continue in that role?
Yeah.
He's been moved around a couple of times. Obviously, he's been injured, so in and out of the side.
Yeah.
But I think they need to now start nailing down a halves pairing that's going to be for the rest of the season. We're coming up to 6 games for some sides. And, it's still early doors, but, most teams have got, or most top teams have got the halves pairing nailed down now.
Yeah.
Even like Saints, who had 5 options at the start of the season, they've picked 2, stuck with them, and it's worked. So I think for Leeds, that's what they need to work on at the moment. So I think Hull, for me, would be the one to take that. On the Friday, 2 games. Warrington take on St Helens and Widnes take on Huddersfield. A real test for St Helens. Warrington are going to be another tough game for them, and Widnes Huddersfield, I think that's going to be just a good... So it's going to be a scrappy game for me, I think.
Yeah.
2 sides who don't have all that much to play for, but at the same time have a lot to play for, because these are the games that either team need to be picking up 2 points in.
Yeah, that was massive. And on the first one first, I think Warrington need a bit of a reaction after the whole game. Halliwell Jones is always a pretty tough place to go, as Wigan found out last week. I think Saints are going to be too strong for them again. At the moment, it's a matter of when our Saints are going to slip up, though. I think just that, like this Super League's too close for any side to go kind of undefeated or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's going to happen. But results are going to slip eventually. It's just a matter of when, really, for St Helens. And Warrington are a side on their day. It's one of those, they've got to have a really good day. Warrington on an off day are not going to trouble anybody for me. I think they can be turned over by anyone, but I think Warrington at the absolute best, in the same vein, can trouble anyone else. So, if they're really geared up for it, home tie, Friday night, for Sky cameras, then they could certainly trouble St Helens. I think Saints are going to have a little bit too much for them, personally, just by going off recent form. I think Saints will probably take it by a try or 2. But it's one of those where I wouldn't be too surprised if Warrington actually did sneak it. And just the other game, like I say, probably quite scrappy.
Yeah. 2
of the less kind of polished sides of the division, I think. Although not quite as bad as the next game we'll go on to. As we say, Widnes are more than capable in that game.
Yeah, I think, in fact, I'd probably back Widnes for me.
On current form, I think you can't really back against them.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Huddersfield. In the same vein, you've got Huddersfield who need a result themselves.
Yeah.
They've had the 1 win this year, the top of Warrington in week 2. But they were, again, conditions, but they were pretty poor against Wakefield. They couldn't really keep hold of the ball too well. Defensively, they weren't ideal. And Widnes have proven they can threaten an attack. So, I'll probably select Widnes there, I think.
Yeah, I think, Huddersfield have more than got the quality to win that game, but for me, I think, my gut feeling is Widnes are going to take that one.
Huddersfield are aside, I think they could just explode one week.
Yeah.
I think they have the potential to explode one week and put 40 points on someone. Again, it's just a matter of when.
But then, same vein, in the week after that, a poor performance.
They might get beat by 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of boom or bust, really.
Yeah. And the Saturday game, sort of in the same vein of form, Another game where either team ideally needs to be winning it.
I'm looking forward to this one.
Catalans versus Hull KR.
Set your Sky Plus.
It's got the makings for a good game,
Does it?
I think in this, we've said it's another one that both teams need to win.
Yeah.
In spells, both sides have shown that they can play. Catalans probably in a different way. They've shown they can hold on to games.
Yeah.
I think it depends how both teams approach the game. If Catalans go out and play, then there's all a chance they could get the win. But when Saints went there, they held back and just defended. But I know it's a completely different kettle of fish with Hull KR, but I think this is a real good chance for Hull KR to grab a victory for me.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's not a game that kind of sets the heart racing, to be honest, just simply because we've seen it once before already this season.
Yeah.
We were discussing this off air. We're not quite sure why they're playing each other again so quickly. If anyone knows, put it in the comments. But it's only been about 3 weeks since they played last, and they played on the Thursday night on Sky again. And I'll be honest, it was one of the worst Sky games I've seen in a very long time. It wasn't great. It really wasn't. Mainly because of Catalan. Hull KR did okay. Hull KR were maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10. They were okay. Catalan were down near 3 or 4. They were really poor that day. There's always a bit of a difference maker. Obviously, this one's in Perpignan. They always up the game, even just a little bit.
Yeah.
When they're at home, it's always a tough test to go over there. But teams have managed it so far this year. Wakefield did a good job. Saints did a good job. Catalan need to get a win from somewhere, and
there's not many games you're looking at.
Yeah, where they
for better.
You look at this one, maybe when they face Salford, teams down there, Huddersfield as we mentioned, but if they're really going to get off to winning ways, you'd like to think it'd be this one. With all due respect to Hull KR, but it's two quite evenly matched sides, and that's not saying they're particularly good, but they are evenly matched.
Yeah, and I think, as I've said, it depends a lot on the way that they approach the game.
Yeah.
If both sides go in and play the attacking rugby that they're capable of, it could be one of them surprise games that end up, 20 points or 28-24.
Yeah.
And after it we go, well, you know what, that was actually an alright game, two sides scrapping it out.
It'll be interesting to see how disruptive they've been as well, because obviously both sides had the game postponed last week, so they have technically had 2 weeks to prepare for this one.
Yeah. Which
is another kind of subplot. So, if they've both used the 2 weeks to really focus on each other, then it could be a real chess match, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and another doubleheader on the Sunday to finish off the week. Wigan take on Wakefield, and Casford take on the Salford Red Devils at home. Wigan versus Wakefield is the one that stands out in that one for me.
Yeah.
Wigan, we mentioned the strong performance that they produced, but it's going to be a real test against that Wakefield side for me.
Yeah, they're going to want to keep that unbeaten record intact, and it's a real tough test. I think, to be honest, this is the week we really find out about Wakefield.
Yeah.
I think you can say that. The DW is a real tough place to go. Winners found that out last week, and was Winners, wasn't it? Was Winners. Yeah. Question myself there. But yeah, if Trinity want to make it 5 from 5, and it would be a real statement from Chris Chester's side if they went to DW and beat Wigan. But Wigan will be buoyed, like we say. They got the 28-16 win, the 28 unanswered points, as you say. They should be full of confidence. Obviously plenty of mistakes in that game, but they learnt from it. Probably a dark horse for Warrington. Leeds Hull is probably the game that probably stands out this week, but Wigan Wakefield probably a dark horse for game of the week, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think as similarly as it is time to find out Wakefield, I think it's time to find out Wigan.
Yeah, true.
No one really knows. They've showed signs of being up there, and then they've showed signs that they're not quite there. I think a strong performance against a Wakefield side, if they could pull off a win there,
this could arguably be their toughest test so far as well.
People start, picking their heads up and go, actually, they're not as sort of out of sorts as everyone's making out. I wouldn't use the word weak. I think that side's too good to use that word. But I think similarly, if Wakefield can beat Wigan, then everyone goes, this is the year that Wakefield can actually push on and maybe even challenge near the top.
Yeah, there are two sides of the conversation, which were at the start of the season where we kind of assume one of them has a good chance of breaking into the top four, or at least the top five, so be on the edges. So I think it'd be interesting to see if we get a real good idea, whoever wins this game, whether they can push on, whether they will be the one to really go into that, try and get that fourth spot.
Yeah, and I think, it could be, as you said, probably pick of the game of the week, really, not on Sky, but apart from Leeds Hull, there's probably not a game there. Maybe Warrington Saints that offers as much as this game, and for me, I'd be interested to see the score for this time next week. Last game of the week, we mentioned Castleford versus Salford. Salford, it's just a case of, show up and just put in a better performance than last week for me.
Yeah, I hope they don't, but that is the case. Cass again, coming off a 2-week break, unfortunately after the KR game, got called off, which is not ideal. But we spoke about this week how unideal it was. But I think Salford didn't really show a great deal against St Helens. Like I say, the tackling was pretty poor. They looked quite, dare I say, quite soft up the middle.
Yeah.
And Caster's best performance was last time out against Hull, where we looked very good in the forward pack. I think as much as we were decent on the outsides, it was right up the middle. It was the performances of players like Grant Milton who really stood out up the middle. So that's going to be massive. I think if Cass kind of get on top of them early doors in the first 5-10 minutes, it could be a long day for Salford, because the thing what Cass do is they try and get on top in the first 20, and we really pack the bench with the big boys. You get your Junior Moores, your Jester Nilfeo coming on after 20 minutes. If you're already really under the cosh at that point, and then you see guys like that coming on fresh, then that's really going to knock your confidence. And as we say, Salford look like a bit of a confidence team at the moment. So they need a good start, and if they don't get it, it could turn quite nasty for Salford, I think, that one.
Yeah, I think, with this Castleford side, more so last year, they always had the threat of, putting a big score on a side, and the team's not changed massively that much, and you could say, if Salford produce a similar performance that they did the weekend, they could be on the back of another 30-odd point defeat, which again pushes them down. For Castleford, it's just a, start building more, get back to what he was last year. I think it's obviously a different scenario last year. The football that the side was playing was absolutely amazing, but I think it's one of them games. Just perform how you can. So as you go into it as favourites, look to get the win, and that's all you can ask, really.
Yeah, I think you look at it, and I think most Cas fans would assume, or I think most neutrals would assume that'd be 2 points for the Tigers there. But I think Cas fans always look at Salford fixtures with a little bit of worry. They do tend to be a bit of a banana skin for us in the past. I know they beat us around this time last season. They were the first team to beat us, I think, actually. Last campaign, despite we were in great form, as we started last year, and that was at the AJ Bell, and they beat us with a Gareth O'Brien drop goal, I believe. Salford always seem to have our number a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't always get the result, but it's always a tough encounter. So we'll see. If it's the same Salford of the past, then it could be a close one. But as I say, if Cas get on top early doors, I can't see much past a Castleford win, to be honest. Yeah,
and that's it for this week. That's all we've got time for. Another solid week of games to come up for next week.
Next week.
So join us at the same time next week. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. And to Ross, thank you for joining me again this week.
Pleasure as always.
We'll see you same time next week.